Alright, welcome to Bluescreen Bronies 80's week. Yeah! Where we're going to talk about arcade games and consoles and even movies and TV shows that came out during the 80s about video games. I'm Draco.
I'm D-Pad.
I'm Viral.
I'm Crescendo.
And you know what? We need to kick this off on a good note because I don't want to talk about certain things just yet. And if you were alive during the 80s, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh boy, here we go.
Alright, let's start this off with the Atari 2600. The first, not real gaming system, but first real available to be sold at home game system. Even came with its own wood paneling because, you know, wood.
Everything
awesome.
had wood paneling in the 80s. Even the cars.
Cars, houses, freaking... I'm sure, like, bicycles somewhere were made out of wood at one point.
Actually, my mother has a wood-paneled bicycle.
Even the trees had wood paneling.
God, your bark is worse than your bite.
Oh god.
Oh, my God. Anyway, the 2600 saw a lot of decent games. I mean, they weren't great. You didn't have John Madden, 2013, where you can make out all the players' facial details. It was more like pink guys versus purple guys, and the ball was kind of like a little white dot. Atari 2600 wasn't that powerful. Think of it this way. Most phones, cellular phones, that came out in the early 90s were 200 times more powerful than Atari 2600.
Oh boy, all the memories. But at the time, it got the job done and you didn't complain, because it meant you didn't have to go to the arcade.
Well, that's true. But the arcade still had some pretty good hits that were on arcade first and then were on game systems after. There were a few arcade games that didn't come out until the Atari 5200 came out because the power wasn't there.
To be fair, back then, there was also the added bonus of going to the arcade meant you could socialize with people, because when the 2600 came out, you had no real way of communicating with a mass amount of friends over like the internet or anything. So a good meeting place would be the arcade.
Arcades were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And they are a dying art.
Dying art. Good luck finding one.
Exactly.
Yeah, if there's not one at the movie theater, then I don't really know where you're looking anymore.
Only place you can really find them anymore is at a Dave and Buster's.
Isn't that just a Chuck E. Cheese for adults?
Yes.
The Atari 2600 was pretty simple. It was a small box that held one cartridge, and it had a controller with one button and an analog stick, and that was it.
There was also the spin dial controller, but we don't talk about that thing.
No, we do not. Then the Atari 52 came out not too long after that. 5200 came out after the 83 crash, and let me just say, 83 crash was horrible. It happened right after E.T. came out, and we all know what happened there.
We have some couple thousand cartridges filling up a landfill somewhere.
Somewhere out in Arizona.
That's no urban myth.
No, AVGN actually made a movie about going to find the last game cartridge available.
And why would you go to all this just to find one awful game cartridge?
Because it sells money on YouTube.
Fair enough.
Anyway, the Atari 52 came out. 5200 came out, and it was big, like really big, like bigger than my 24-inch monitor. Big, heavy, bulky. It looked like half the size of a TV.
How the heck did you plug that thing in? I know there weren't like your composite cables.
RF cord. It was an RF cord that was actually really, really easy to break.
How would you even call in for replacement parts of the thing? Just buy a new console if the RF cord breaks?
Back then, yeah.
That's awful.
And they were $370 some odd back then.
I mean, you complain about console prices now. Yeah.
But the 5200 with it brought more power, so that way you can have games like Defender come out of the arcades and go into the home. You have Pac-Man, you have Galaga, Joust.
Oh, all those quarters I lost in Galaga.
Missile Command.
Memories.
Oh, Missile Command. Those were great times. And, that also brought about one of the most infamous large, heavy controllers you've ever used. The trackball.
Is it a giant thing with the... Oh god, the trackball.
The trackball controller. It literally had enough space for 2 players. Yes. What it looked like an arcade box. It really did, because it had the trackball in the center, which was basically a porcelain cue ball. And it had 2 sets of fire buttons on the left, 2 sets of fire buttons on the right. Now let's go ahead and just go into the 5200 a little bit more than that, because the controller was an adaptation of an evolution of the old controller. They added the dial pad, which everybody infamously remembers sucked. Had 2 buttons on either side of the controller, the stick in the center, and the dial pad, which basically looked like a phone. And it would come with these little inserts that would go over type of the dial pad for each game.
And yet, a good 20 or so years later, the Xbox controller, the original Xbox controller, still manages to be just as big.
Yeah.
Oh god.
That thing's a tank.
Yep.
I got big hands and I still got carpal tunnel playing that.
Yeah, one of my buddies broke his TV with it. Controller's fine, TV's like shattered.
Now, this was also the golden age of console competition. Because you didn't just have 1 or 2 like you do today. You got the Xbox, you got the PlayStation, you got the Wii. Back then, you had the ColecoVision, the Intellivision, the CDI, the Samsung, you had a whole laundry list of different competitors trying to get in on the market. And a lot of them died off.
Speaking of the CDI, I think our audience and everyone here collectively shuddered at the thought of it.
I thought that was an attachment for the Super Nintendo.
The CDI? No. CDI was basically like a DVD player. They also had games on Laserdisc, like Dragon's Lair.
Oh god, Laserdisc. I remember still watching the old He-Man cartoons on that thing.
There was a lot of innovation back then, and it took them a long time to actually get it right. But in 1985, exact date no one knows except for Nintendo of America, and they're not sharing, the Nintendo Entertainment System released.
And thus,
Hallelujah!
and thus many childhoods were born.
I was born the week of the Nintendo release, so I was born with a controller in my hand.
I may have been born a little bit later, but I still grew up with a NES and a SNES and a Nintendo 64.
About 4 years ago, our family's Nintendo finally burned out internally.
We burned out
Wow.
3 Nintendos. We played them so much. We burned
Good
out
Lord.
3. Now here's the problem. Nintendo games, people think that games are expensive now, $60. Well, they are. Games ran anywhere from $50 to $89 back in the late 80s, early 90s. That included Mega Man. Some of the more popular titles costed $89.
Okay, that's just nuts.
Now, you want to talk about those games, price has only gone up.
Well, that, and everybody's like, oh, Kinect's such a gimmick. Let me tell you something about Kinect. If Kinect's all the gimmick that we're getting out of Xbox, I welcome it, because we had the Power Glove, the Power Pad, the Power Mat,
I still have
Super
one of those.
Bazooka, the Light Gun, the Rail Gun.
Oh, the Power Glove. It's so bad.
Well, we even had the laser sight, and if you haven't seen Angry Video Game Nerd, he actually tested out pretty well with Top Gun. Fart! 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 You didn't even have to look at the screen. It was so horrible.
Let's see, and then there was the arcade style controller, the Fight Pad controller.
That wasn't that bad. It came
Yeah,
with
that
suction
thing was
cups.
awesome.
It came with suction cups, so it actually stayed put.
Yeah, I still have one.
And we certainly can't forget Rob, the robotic operating buddy.
Okay, then there was the turbo controller, which was amazing for Mega Man.
Wasn't there that pad you could put your NES controller in? What they call it, a speed pad?
Speed pad.
Where you're
Oh
supposed-
yeah, it was just a piece of acrylic.
Yeah, I heard that actually gave people more carpal tunnel than the controller itself.
They had a lot of gimmicks back then. A lot of ways to sell the Nintendo brand, including one of the most infamous, which came out in 1987, Nintendo Power.
Wouldn't say it's infamous.
No, it was infamous, because what happened when it came out, they didn't have a 1-800 number you could call. They had a 1-900 number, and it was $1 a minute.
Oh my god.
It was horrible. You needed a Game Genie for half the games, Nintendo Power, and to call them. It was pretty bad.
This was back in the days of when games didn't have any in-game help system. Also before the days of GameFAQs.
Yeah, before the internet took off, Nintendo was the only source of information for Nintendo games.
Good luck finding that. I know you're gonna hate me for saying this, Draco, but Legends of Zelda 2 good luck finding that one hidden passage in the graveyard.
Now, the issue I have with marketing today is, look at the way they used marketing back in the day for just the Sword Quest games. The different Sword Quest games had different contests for prizes that were $25,000 or more. If it wouldn't have been for the 83 crash, there would have been a $55,000 silver-bladed sword out there that someone would have won. We don't have contests like that anymore, except for maybe the MLB Perfect Pitching Contest, which is $1 million.
Well, I mean, sometimes you can, if you pre-order games and stuff like that, you get entered for the contest where you can win. Like, for example, with Deus Ex Human Revolution, you could win a model of, model of Adam Jensen's arm. Then for Space Marine, you could win a chainsword.
Well, that's fine and dandy and all, but it's still not up to the epic value that the other ones.
Hey, you know what I'd be okay with? If Blizzard did a contest where I could win a replica Frostmourne. Hey, that thing's like almost 2 feet long.
Yeah, the only thing that gaming has going for it nowadays is there are competitions, but other than that, back then, the competitions were held by the game companies, and they were given epic prizes to match their skill. Now it's just like, you have to be lucky or something.
Now it's all about the bragging rights.
You had to be little Jimmy who spams all his Facebook friends.
Exactly, and that's stupid.
Yep.
I think that competitions and such shouldn't determine how much you enjoy a video game, and in the end, so long as you enjoy it, that's what counts after all.
I mean, that's great and all to enjoy it, but there used to be epic competitions to market games. Now it's more of, pre-order this game for free loot that you won't get otherwise, because we're doing this because we want to make more money.
It's because gaming now is far more in the mainstream than it used to be. Back then it wasn't something practically millions upon millions of kids have like nowadays in their houses.
True, but that didn't stop the Atari people, and you know what? They went bankrupt trying to fund this. And I congratulate them a little bit, but I also want to say this. Terrible movie games are terrible. I don't care what game system they're on.
Agreed.
Look at the Superman games.
Yep.
Look at the Superman games. Oh my. Even on NES they were terrible.
Silver Surfer says hello.
I have so much rage for that game. So much rage.
If I remember correctly, the only, like, community-voted movie game that even does decently is, like, Spider-Man 2, and that's on the GameCube. It took them that long to get it right.
No, Batman on NES. The Michael Keaton movie, the Tim Burton movie, that game that spawned from it was really good because it was Ninja Gaiden-esque, and it was really good. The Joker was one of the hardest bosses. But, like, most popular games from the 80s, it's kind of a hard list to put together because there were so many.
I mean, you could go with the ones that spawn an entire series. You know, you have Zelda, Metroid, Mario from Nintendo. And again, Nintendo's really one of the only survivors.
Well, there were a few games that were kind of under the bus, too, like Marble Madness. I had that game, and it was pretty good. It was kind of like one of the first exploration puzzle games. It was pretty good. And then Defender was on the Atari 5200 and arcade systems. Pac-Man, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, came out in '89. That was, like, awesome until it got ported over to the NES, and it was like, crap. But I gotta say, my favorite, like, one of my favorite games is one from Konami called Life Force. And it's a side-scrolling space shooter that had a little bit of a switched up to it, because every other level would be a top-scrolling shooter, kind of like a 1941 or 1942, I can't remember.
1942.
And it was pretty good. You have a lot of firsts back then, too, because it was the first of the systems that were really explored it. Like, you had Metal Gear, which is the first espionage game. You have Duck Hunt, which is, like, literally the first shooting game where you would point and shoot a gun. Spy Hunter, which was a dodge and evasive. It's kind of like GTA.
A little bit. Then there was, you had games like Battletoads, which is, still remembered today for being ridiculously difficult, and I've still yet to beat it.
I've beaten it, but only solo, not with anyone else.
And for those of you in Vegas this weekend, please go into the Pawn Stars shop, ask for Battletoads.
Oh god. Go up to Chumley and say you'll play him in a game of Battletoads. That'd be funny. But with great gaming success comes stupid ideas like movies!
I'm out. I'm out. Peace. YOLO.
Oh god. Oh, don't even
The
start
Super
with me.
Mario Brothers movie. Tell me, what the...
Money, 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 money.
They won.
That was
Clearly
the
not.
stupidest idea I have ever seen, ever.
Even the Doom movie was better, but that was like 20 years later.
It's like they took my childhood, put it through a meat grinder, fed it to me, and then killed me.
Jeez, that sounds like you're, understating how bad that movie was.
One movie that wasn't that bad, but was kind of like snarky, because it was just one giant video game advertisement. The Wizard.
Some people would disagree with you. I'm not sure on the Wizard, honestly. Sometimes, though, you gotta say, it's so bad.
The only reason you knew it was a video game advertisement, because at the very end, Super Mario Bros. 3 is advertised. It's the first look you had at Super Mario Bros. 3 before the commercials came out. I mean, it's a good game, but did they really have to do that? And really, to be honest with you, this kind of reminds me of that movie is kind of what inspired the, I don't know if you remember, the Nickelodeon game show in the 90s, Nick Arcade.
Oh my god, I remember that. That was such a cool
Oh, that's
show.
what that show was. I could not remember it for the life of me.
Alright, let's take a break here and get our first review out of the way. It's Metroid, done by D-Pad here.
Yep, one of my favorite games of all time. Even though I've played almost every game in the series, I still need to find a copy of Metroid 2, fired up on my old Game Boy.
I can work on that, but without further ado, let's take a look.
If you haven't heard of Metroid by now, quite frankly, I feel sorry for you. Anyway, Metroid is a game that helped to define the generations of video games to come. It was released in 1986 for the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Famicom. This game caught like wildfire, and became an instant classic. The game takes the well-known platformer mechanics for which Nintendo is famous for and applies a directional shooting mechanic in the 4 cardinal directions. The tricky part about the shooting, though, is that most of the enemies cannot be hit if they are level with you. The projectiles Samus shoots will sail over most of their heads, forcing you to try to reposition yourself to attack them. Power-ups are hidden throughout the game, and many of them are essential to progressing further through the game. However, with no map nor explanation of what many of the power-ups do, completing the game was a true challenge. Speedruns of Metroid became very popular, and the game rewarded those who could beat the game within a certain time frame. The bosses in the game were no picnic either. Mother Brain still remains one of the benchmarks to a true gamer's success. The levels are well designed and full of secrets, the music is cool, and the mechanics are solid for this 80s masterpiece. So, gamers, are you tough enough to be the best bounty hunter in the universe? Pick up a copy of Metroid and find out.
Okay, for anybody who doesn't know what Metroid is, it's like one of the first space exploration with a very large twist at the end. The first female hero.
Yep, pretty much.
Say what?
Yeah, the game, the game became popular with speedruns, so that if you beat the game within a certain period of time, you got to see Samus with her armor off.
And no, it's not like that, you sick, dirty kids.
Yeah, wait for Super Metroid.
She takes her helmet off, that's all.
Wasn't she in a bikini in
Yeah, she.
first one?
If you beat it
Yeah.
in a minute, and under a minute 30, or not a minute 30, I'm sorry.
An hour and 30.
An hour and 30 minutes, it was in a black bikini.
I thought it was purple.
That depends on what kind of TV you played it on, too, because
Yep.
I had a black and white TV.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know in Super Metroid she's wearing a black bikini, but... And it was a one piece in Metroid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had multiple choices of TVs back then. And half of them were black and white.
Yep.
But it's a decent game. It's what Castlevania started going towards. later in its life. It just exploration and collection game.
Lots
Yeah, the whole
of
backtracking concept. That's basically kind of what built up the modern Nintendo adventure game kind of formula.
And then they gave it to Team Ninja.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that one. We're talking about Metroids 1 through 4. And Prime, I guess, but that's different.
That took the game in a whole nother direction, which I liked.
Prime reminded me more of Turok than anything.
Oh, I love that game too.
Yeah, it was actually a better game than the Turok re-release was.
Alright.
That's not hard.
True.
Alright, going from Metroid onto some game news that recently hit the Brony fandom. Main 6 was ordered by Hasbro C&D to stop production on your game and never release it. You know, that's fine and dandy and all, and people need to quit giving so much flack to people that are not at fault here. I mean, it's not M.A. Larson, it's not Lauren Faust, it's not really Hasbro's fault, really, to be honest with you, because Main 6 did this without permission, and they knew full well what could possibly happen.
Yep, I mean, in the end, they're still using another company's IP. Even if they don't intend to use it for profit, it's still covered under copyright law.
The game, plain and simple, was illegal right from day one.
It's like this. You create the world's best cheesecake, and someone takes that name and makes it into something very, very vulgar, and now your brand name's ruined. What are you gonna do?
I mean, sure, I mean, we still can, be sad that the game won't come out, but in the end, there's not much we can do. There is no point in whining to there.
Yeah, there's no real point whining to Hasbro or M.A. Larson. Although M.A. Larson's trolling is getting pretty good because of it.
It is
Have you
entertaining
seen
for
Daniel
certain.
Ingram lately?
No, I try to stay away from the music end of this because the puns are just too terrible.
No, that's only if Stefan's involved.
Ha!
Funnily enough, I can't words tonight.
You're not drunk enough, Crescendo. Get drunker.
Funnily enough, I love interacting with Stefan Andrews, but, fellow punner and all.
Dear God, you are turning in the final draft.
Well, from one bad pun to another, let's go take a look at Contra. I decided to boot up the Xbox Live Arcade version of it, because really, to be honest with you, I'm not hunting down an NES anymore.
Now, there's one thing that most people who play Contra already know, is that up to down, left, right, B-A, start.
Well, the Konami Code's kind of a staple in gaming history, but...
Well, it's one of the games that was it's one of the very first games that was used on, and for most people, the only way to ever actually beat Contra. Because Contra, you only have one health, 2 lives, and if you lose them, that's it, game over, you start again. But the Konami Code gives you 30, and ever since then, it's been a staple in games. Some certain games where we'll give you either a little secret message, for instance, at the end of the Metal Gear Solid games, you get a little bit of dialogue off Snake, or I believe in number 2 it gives you a bit from Ocelot. And yeah, it's been a staple since then.
Up next, Contra. Let's take a look. Well, since it's 80's week, what a better time than now to...
Delivery!
Not now, Derpy. I'm in the middle of a review.
Ooh, what game are you playing?
I'm playing the first Contra game on my Xbox Live. Let's just hope that the Konami Code still works for this version. Oh, come on! Screw it. I'm gonna beat it with just 2 lives.
I just don't know what went wrong. Oh! I know! Maybe a muffin would help you with those extra lives!
Derpy, I don't think eating a muffin will help with this game.
Sure it will! Which flavor do you want?
Fine! I guess I'll have chocolate chip.
Here you go! Enjoy the muffin, sir!
No, wait! It says that chocolate chip. It's raisin! Raisin!
You're welcome!
muffins aside, this is Contra, the game with a famous history of starting a Konami Code, a simple debugging tool that the developers put in to go through the game to make sure that bugs were all worked out in the endgame. But it became a small staple for the Konami games throughout the years, including Gradius and Life Force. The game is short and sweet, and also hard. A co-op game that I absolutely adored so much I went broke at arcades between this game and other amazing games from the 80s and early 90s. This game has several power-ups, but the spread option is the most useful, and it just about covers everything that you want to do. One of the early co-op side-scrolling shooters, adding a second simultaneous player was an awesome addition to this game. Clocking in at maybe 20 minutes of game time, I have to say it's the best 20 minutes I've ever played in the game. Grab it for yourself on an online console. So yeah, Contra, like, it's one of the first games that ever made me break a controller.
Well, you had to learn to dodge or you were screwed.
How did you manage to break the brick troller?
I used the turbo, and it's much softer.
Oh. My
I
parents
think
were
you'd break
cheap.
your hands before you would break a old NES controller.
By the way, Sledgehammer works wonders.
Well, obviously. That's a lot of effort for Rage.
But it feels so good when you're done.
Oh yeah, feels so good. Okay, the game is short, like really short, like 20 minutes short, like most arcade games were back then. Really short, made to just waste a lot of money killing you to make sure you put more coins in. It's just, It was one of the first co-op shooters to play simultaneously, and it was also one of the hardest games I've ever played. If you don't enter the Contra code, you're done. You're just done, because like some of the bullets blend in.
Mm-hmm. They're very sneaky with what they do in that game. I have very fond
I wouldn't say
memories of...
sneaky.
I have very fond memories of playing Contra, and I wouldn't say I'm very partial to raging at games, but Contra invoked it a little bit.
Okay, the Konami Code was first invoked on Contra. The developers left it in there because it was basically the debug code. It was what they considered God mode, so they can get through and actually see if the game was playable towards the end.
Yeah, the developer, he couldn't actually beat his own game.
That's why you know it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
Contra is a great series. I mean, Super Contra was amazing. Kind of rare to find now, but yeah, I mean, I would rather play Metal Slug, though, than Contra. That's just me.
Metal Slug was fun.
I mean, there's nothing like getting the mysterious chicken from the pants he takes off in front of you.
So we're going with Final Fight, where you can just eat stuff out of the trash and not need your stomach pumped a couple hours later?
I wonder how Richter eats wall chicken and not gets sick.
True, because God knows how long that's been in there.
I'm crawling through a 3,000-year-old dungeon, and I managed to find this fully cooked chicken.
Speaking of which, I want to end this on two good notes with games. First of all, there were two major games, actually 3 major games that had. Hold on. There were 3 major games that had amazing music scores. You had Final Fantasy, you had Mega Man 2, and then you had Castlevania. I mean, Wicked Child is still a great tune to listen to, and that's if I believe that's either 3rd or 4th stage on Castlevania. Mega Man 2, the most known song out there is Dr. Wily's Stage 1.
Well, stage 1 and 2.
Partial to Metal Man's theme.
Everybody does like Metal Man's
I
theme.
don't know, Viral. I would have thought you'd enjoy Bubble Man's theme.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble crescendo.
Hey, just wait a quick flash of a second here.
Careful your puns.
Puns don't
Careful
stop.
your puns don't crash and burn.
I'd hate to shadow this argument.
Hey,
That was 3.
I thought we were sticking to 2 here.
I thought I was too, but I decided to jump 3 because Toy Man's amazing, or Top Man rather.
You turned up the heat on this conversation.
Nope, we're done. Anyway,
I think we just gotta cut it there.
Final Fantasy's opening sequence music is now a repeated staple. It's in every Final Fantasy.
Not to mention the victory theme.
The victory fanfare has changed over the years, and it's
But
not always the same.
basic melody is there.
The same basic song for the opening is in every opening just about.
I still haven't gotten that in, was it 13? And I'm 3 hours into the game.
It's in 13.
The game doesn't start until about 20 hours in Viral, so...
Yeah, it's like Xenosaga. You get to watch one giant movie, you get to move 5 feet, and then you get to watch another movie. But...
You know, tutorial's only 14 hours long. You can totally just
the music
right through
of the games was just so original, so new, because you played a game, there wasn't too much music that wasn't already like a repetitive loop of 10 seconds.
You had very basic hardware back then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that they crammed not just one entire song, but 15 plus entire original songs into a game was just amazing.
I mean, even back then, Metroid still had some fairly decent music that's still a staple to the series.
But
Partially.
Oh yeah, the Metroid soundtrack is great. I mean, you know, there's still an homage to it in every other Metroid game.
now, let's move on to a TV show that premiered in 1989. A TV show really close to Giggles' heart over here.
Oh, it was my favorite TV show of my entire childhood. And that was the Super Mario Bros. Super Show.
But you didn't like Zelda?
I
But it had rarity!
I did enjoy Zelda, but Super Mario Bros. Super Show stole my heart. And to some, it was the worst thing to ever grace TV sets.
The worst possible thing, you might say?
Now, it was pretty bad. The live action skits were really horrible. Like, really bad.
I think everyone can agree that the people watched it for the animated parts, without a doubt.
Even the Zelda cartoon was pretty good.
Well, excuse
Once you got past
me,
the
princess.
Ah, you beat me to the line.
Well, you know what? I think we should end this with one of two things. I think we need to swing our arms from side to side.
Oh, we're doing the Mario
I think it's time
then?
for everyone to do the Mario.
Do the Mario! Swing your arms from side to side. Come on, it's time to go. Do the Mario. Take one step, and then again. Let's do the Mario all together now. You got it. It's the Mario.
Well, now that we've done the Mario, now we have to go fly to the castle and save our princess.
Let's fly to the castle. Holy sh!
I think I'm getting a fever.
Are we feeling some Pac-Man fever?
Oh god! God, no! No!